right. Well, good morning, everyone. How are you doing on day 2? Are you excited? Are you a little tired at all? Yeah, I am a little tired too. Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's just stay here forever. So I wanted just to share with you what we have been doing statewide, and actually we have folks joining from all over the country at this point, and I would like to invite you to participate as well, and your organizations, and it's all free, which is, win-win. And so this came about, and I want to introduce it. I'll lead you through it, and then I will give you the links to how to get to it and how to share it with your organization members and colleagues. Beginning of March 2020, I keep bringing this up, but it was a profound period of change for the world, and those of us in workforce development felt that a lot, right? And we were contacted, actually started with ODHS, your wonderful organization, reached out and said, we want to support staff because this is hard and there's a lot going on and we want to support them. And so what can you put together? And so we started offering something called the Mindfulness Broadcast. We were doing it twice a week because we needed it back then. And then we started, I'm on a different computer, different screen. Well, I don't need that right now. And then it kind of grew to where we also started providing this through Rogue Workforce Partnership to all of the agencies and organizations working within workforce development in Southern Oregon. And then it caught on and it's just continued to grow to who's accessing it. We did shrink it down to offer it one time a week. So the Mindfulness Broadcast is offered every Friday from 8:15 to 8:30. It's on Zoom. You don't have to look good or participate at all. Your camera doesn't have to be on. It's just a gift that we believe in. We know that the power of mindfulness is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves as individuals, as parents, as people, as colleagues, as people in our community, as helpers, as coaches, all of those things. It's one of the greatest modalities we can put into our brain to use this magnificent thing on purpose and intentionally, and to train it to be able to be present. And so we, all of the mindfulness that we offer is through the lens of neuroscience. So there's no dogma attached to it. There's nothing except let's talk about life and then let's do a meditation. So it's a guided meditation. So I teach it in collaboration with my colleague Theo, who is a mindfulness practitioner as well. And we kind of trade off, and we record them. Your faces, although they're not on there very often, it's usually just names on screens. Your names and faces are never seen. We upload those onto a YouTube channel, and it also just remains a free resource that you can get to anytime. We have folks who use those as their own practice, and we have folks who select certain topics and share those with those they serve as well as a way to continue to build their intentional practice. And then from that, we did that for a few years. And from that, people said, we want more. We'd like a little bit more. And so we started offering once a month something called the Mindful Masterclass. And you also have free access to that. It is the third Wednesday of every month. You can have your face on it if you'd like, because it's more of a group coaching. We don't guide you through a topic. We invite you. So we have a certain topic that we bring. Maybe it's self-compassion. Maybe it's setting boundaries. We group coach and talk about that through the lens of neuroscience and mindfulness. And then we put together a resource guide that when you come, you leave with this, we put it in the chat of the Zoom room, and you leave with this one-page resource guide. And it has podcasts, TED Talks, articles, books, recommendations, journal and thought work, and a motivational quote. And so again, what we find is that people keep those and they share those with, they might start out team meetings with something that is on topic. They might share it with participants or job seekers, or they might just use it to deepen their own work in something. So that's all there and all accessible to you. So what I'm going to do this morning is guide you through a mindfulness broadcast. But first I want to set it up because I want to, again, try to convince you why this is important and valuable to you. And so give me a second here to see if I can log back into this friend. I see it here. All right. I had to click quickly so I don't lose my screen. All right, so what is mindfulness? And I look to John Kabat-Zinn to define this. John, while of course mindfulness is nothing new, although it's a buzzword right now, it's nothing new. It's been around for thousands of years, and in many different cultures. John in the 1970s really started to bring this work into the lab for us to study and to learn from. And he's really the reason that if you've ever talked to a cardiologist about heart health and they recommend mindfulness, he's the reason. Or if you're on a flight and you can find mindfulness activities in your onboard app, we can thank John for that because he really allowed us to study this amazing work and what it's doing through the lens of neuroscience and physical health as well. So he defines this as paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So if you remember from yesterday that comfort zone, fear zone, learning zone, growth zone, this is a power tool for us when we are in the fear zone, right? So if I can learn to pay attention to myself and my thoughts and my emotions and my feelings on purpose, if I can be present with those and not judge myself, you shouldn't feel this way, you're so stupid for thinking that, you're never gonna, right? Just meet myself where I am. I have a higher rate of success of actually getting through to the growth zone, right? So the other thing I want to point out about this is it's literally everything that our brain does not do on its own. So on our own, we have these things called default. We have default modes, or these mechanisms where these places our brains go when we aren't actively engaging them in something. They're going to sound really familiar to you because they're universal default resting modes. So it means universal means it's all of us. Resting mode means it's happening when we're not focusing. And default means it's not your fault. It happens to us. It's all of us. So 4 of these are, I'll describe a couple of them. But one is that our brain is paying attention to a lot of different things and not on purpose, right? Getting our attention is not a hard task, and it is a multi-billion-dollar industry because where your attention goes, so does your energy and your money and your time, right? Think about all the places when you're grocery shopping and there's advertising on the cart, right? Or on the floor in the cereal aisle. People are trying to get your attention all the time. Think about your own organizations, how you're trying to get attention of job seekers and employers and so forth, right? Because it matters. If we get into your mind, it matters. And so what we're doing in mindfulness is we're saying all of these things that are beeping and screaming and yelling at me for my attention, I'm going to put my attention somewhere here on purpose. I'm going to keep clicking because I'm afraid it's going to go somewhere on me. All right. Where our attention tends to go is not in the present moment. We tend to be lost in future thought, all the to-dos and all the things I have to get done and people I need to call. And then we start to build anxiety and stress response to those thoughts about things that aren't even happening yet, right? Or just clicking around so I don't leave it, people. Don't worry, I will eventually get to that other slide. Or our brain goes into the past. So we think about, I can't believe they said that. What were they thinking? I didn't get that done. I should have got that done. I had 4 more things that I was supposed to do, right? And then we feel the stress around that, and our body starts to create those stress hormones around that. And sometimes we're even creative enough as humans to blend that. We kind of take a future version of ourselves and we go place it in a past scenario, and this bolder version of us has a real conversation with somebody, right? We're amazing as human beings. But where we're not very often is right here. Like, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? What's the emotional state I'm in? And then the other thing, our other universal default resting state, and there's a couple ways that we do this, but I'll keep it simple, but we judge. And we tend to do it through this critical state. So we're kind of thinking about, like, what could be different? What could be better? How are we different? We do this in social groups. We do this really all of the time. We're criticizing ourselves. We tend to focus on the negative, and there's negativity biases in our brain that keep us there. If you watch neurons, in a negative space, they connect faster and they have a stronger connection. And there's a million reasons for that. But so we're going to do the opposite of what your brain does on its own. Okay? So that's what mindfulness is. So that does not mean that mindfulness has to be, only for people who do yoga. You don't have to be cross-legged in your arms in a certain form. You can be doing it at a stoplight. You can be doing it in a Zoom meeting. You can practice it in a conversation. You can put on your headphones and just fully rock out to something that you love and just be in it and hear it and listen to it and notice how you feel. That's mindfulness. You can do it when you walk. You can create tradition where every day when I leave the office from here to my car, I'm taking a mindfulness walk, right? So again, if our mantra is, this is great, but I don't have time, you do. You just build it into what you're doing. There's some thought about it that it has to be extra. It doesn't have to be. So why is it important? This is what I want to show you finally. I will land on this slide and stay here. This is a brain 10 minutes before and 10 minutes after meditation. There's a difference. It changes our brain. It's one of those mechanisms we can use to change the functions of the brain or the parts of the brain that we're working on. It can heal portions of brains. It's very powerful in the work of addiction, in understanding urges and how to be with urges, in healthcare, in diabetes work, in heart care work, in all of it. It is profound because it changes the part of our brain that we are experiencing the outside world. Because I don't know about you, but generally we don't have control over the things that are out there. What we do have control over is how we are in relationship to those things out there, right? And that's a brain function. That's where we learn to do that. So specifically, when we practice mindfulness, we talked about that amygdala yesterday, which is that thing that's always scanning for novelty or safety. The best way I can describe this is what it allows us to do. The amygdala kind of senses information in our outside world, and then it decides, is this threat? Should I send this down to lower brain? Or is this novelty? Should I send this up to thinking brain, right? And when we practice mindfulness, what that allows us to do is allows that amygdala to hold that stimuli just a second longer and decide, I think it might be better used and processed here in the prefrontal cortex, right? Which is a really powerful tool for us. It also enhances the functionality of network connections, meaning that those neural connections, we can help create those new pathways better and faster and stronger in terms of being able to come into the present moment. This ability to build emotional intelligence, to be present with our emotion, we build those brain pathways in better ways. And we spend less time in our default mode network, that thing that I was just talking about. And when we do visit that area, we spend less time and can rebound more quickly, right? So we're there less often, and when we do visit, we're there less time. So it's a pretty powerful process. This happens in a trained brain, what I call it, a trained brain. Training, where we begin to see differentiations in mindful brains and non-trained brains, is at about 6 weeks of about 10 to 15 minutes of practice a day. That's amazing to me. It's not like, and in 2030, things are going to be better. You know, it's like 6 weeks. We're not even into summer yet. We're still in spring, I think. Right? So if we can find, those don't have to be 10 to 15 consecutive minutes. It's just that we're thinking about it. We're doing it. We're practicing it intentionally every day. We can start to build a more mindful brain. Don't let your attention go there. This is a test. All right, I am going to check my time. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through this, and then I'm going to guide us through the Mindfulness Broadcast. So the outcome of a trained brain, the mastery of a trained brain, means that, we talked about this term yesterday, metacognition. I have the ability to think about my thinking. So we don't do that very often. We think and we do. We think and we act. We think and we react. And we think that all of our thoughts are true and factual, right? They are not. And so it allows us to play with that and think about that. I'm going to think this thought, and then I'm going to consider that thought and wonder about that thought and get curious about that thought. Even the thought, I don't have time, right? What else might be true? We get to play with that a little bit. These things that we practice that guide our behavior, we get to practice with in our mindfulness work. The second mastery that it allows us to do is allowing. We just meet ourselves where we are. So very often we have an emotion, let's say anger, which is, we're going to say is a pain-based behavior, a pain-based feeling. You know, it's in that kind of more challenging emotion. And then we judge ourselves about that. So we think, well, that's not appropriate. That's not okay. What do I feel this way? Blah, blah, blah. And so we start to layer on more pain, right? More layers of complication. And so with mindfulness, what we're doing is we're just meeting ourselves where we are. I have anger. Whatever, you know, I have whatever. I'm meeting myself wherever I am and just allowing that to be the case, since it is already the case. And it's not that we allow then, well, I'm angry, and so now I've allowed this, and now I'm unleashing myself. What we're doing is we're really honestly meeting ourselves where we are, which means now we get to be curious about it. What's the assumption I'm making that's leading to this emotion? Right? Brene Brown gave us this script that I really love. That's this question of, what's the story I'm making up? I love that question. Anger is present. What's the story I'm making up? That they should have done it differently. I should have done it differently. Is that the case? What else might be true? Right? We get to get curious and start to reroute some of our assumptions. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go over this so that when I end the broadcast, we can just go on to awards, because that would be fun. So your free resources and access that you can walk away with and start using immediately is the Mindfulness Broadcast. I did put down here, email me for the Zoom link. I made the mistake in the beginning of putting this out into the world, the Zoom link, and let's just say I got some uninvited guests one day that I feel like I've not totally worked through. So there's a couple layers that you have to go through to get the link. So email me and I'll give it to you. It's a calendar download. You can put it right onto your calendar and show up whenever you can. You don't have to RSVP. You might need to get approval and make sure you go through whatever that appropriate path is for you. The Mindful Masterclass is that 30-minute class I told you about. You can go right to our website and sign up for that. Or when you email me here, just say, sign me up for that too. It's the same thing. You'll get an email that has a calendar download and the Zoom link, and you can just put it on, no RSVP, and you can share it. And then we also have on-demand videos. I mentioned the Mindfulness Broadcast. We also have, I think there's 7 in this series, coping and self-care videos. that are just on demand. They're all about 7 to 8 minutes, and they're topics on any mindfulness, lots of different mindfulness techniques in there as well. And again, you can use those in whatever way you would like to use those. Non-free places where we practice this in professional development, the power of intention. We focus a lot on mindfulness in that workshop. Essential coaching skills, we talked about that. We teach a workshop, which is both a half day and a full day option called Becoming a Mindful Leader. And then you can also, of course, work with some of our coaches to develop your own skill set in this. So these are all available at our website. Okay, let's do it, shall we? So what I want to do, just first off, is tell you, meet this wherever you are. Practice this right now. Practice metacognition. So if you find, as I start to get into this, you're doing the eye roll and, this is so touchy-feely. This is not who I am. I tried this once in 1989, and I couldn't do it, so I'm not good at it, right? That's just, you've just gone to the edge of your comfort zone. So just notice it. That's all you have to do. If you can't follow along or you're not into it, just listen or anchor in on your breath, and I'll kind of guide you through that, all right? Any thoughts or questions or additions before we get going? All right. And I'm going to have my phone so I can keep an eyeball on the time. What I'll tell you is that you can meet this at whatever level you want, so feel free to sit, stand, lay down, whatever you want to do. All right? All right, so whenever you're ready, you can close your eyes, or you can also just take a soft gaze. If you're new into the world of meditation, I want to just remind us that sometimes we have expectations of what it's supposed to look like or feel like, and we can just let those go. And a trauma-informed practice, if you are ever guiding anyone in a mindfulness practice, is to let them know they don't have to close their eyes. For some of us, that's not a safe space. And there's no expectation that the eyes need to be closed. So do whatever it is that you need to do. Just take a moment to internally just greet yourself today. Very often we just get up and get going. We get up and we're already in a place of scarcity where we don't have enough time. And so we're just taking this moment to greet ourselves into this amazing gift we have of another day. And as you do that, start to notice your breath. There's no need to change it. Just notice where it is. Are they shallow breaths? Are they up high in your chest? Are they full breaths? Is your belly expanding? Notice how your body's breathing. It's allergy season. You might have to work to get some air through your nostrils, or some sounds are coming along with it. Just notice it. And as you notice it, we're going to start to deepen the breath a bit. And if you're able, inhaling through your nose and then slowly exhaling through your lips, pursed as though you're blowing through a straw. Just slow exhales. Inhaling and exhaling. And just do this a few times at whatever rate feels good for you. And then return to your normal breath. And stay here just for a moment, anchoring on your breath. Anchoring is the phrase we use when we're trying to place our attention somewhere on purpose. And the breath is one of my favorite anchors because it's always with us. It's something that we can tap into if we're waiting on hold, while we're driving, while we're working, while we're leading, while we're coaching. And as you inhale, just say to yourself, breathing in. And as you exhale, say to yourself, breathing out. Breathe and know that you're breathing. If your mind has wandered, just notice it. That's not evidence that you're not good at this. It's evidence that you are human. And that is what our brain does. And it's a beautiful place to practice self-compassion. So when we find that our brain has wandered, we just notice it almost with a smirk. Like, yep, that's my humanity. I'm going to bring my attention back. And we might do this every 30 seconds. And that's perfect. Noticing that our mind has wandered is the practice. It isn't a problem. Breathing in, breathing out. And as we're developing our skill here, we're going to start to notice these spaces that punctuate the inhale and the exhale. We inhale, and there's a little space. And then we exhale, and there's a little space. We might even allow these spaces to be a metaphor for our schedules, for our busy lives. Begin to get present with our thoughts about time. And how often we rehearse those thoughts. And allow these spaces to remind us that we can build these tiny spaces of transition into our schedules. And the power that these tiny spaces hold. Breathing in, space. Breathing out, space. And as we begin to move towards closing this practice, notice your body right now. if there's been any adjustment to it at all since we started the practice. Again, kind of narrating to yourself. Are you feeling a little more ease? Are you still feeling feelings that you had before? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just noticing. And then finally, before we completely close, is there any part of this practice that you want to bring with you into today? Any insight you had? Any adjustment? Any aha? Just tuck it away. And together we'll do one final breath to close the practice. Breathing in, space. Breathing out, space. Slowly opening your eyes or bringing your gaze back together. Thank you, everyone. So that's every Friday. So come join us. Come play with us. You're all welcomed. We'd love to have you. Any thoughts or questions before we move on? All right, let's celebrate. I think we have some awards to give out.